Welcome back to Global War 1939. We just finished up round 6. There were some highs and lows for both the Axis and the Allies. Japanese Empire is getting a little larger. So let's take a look at the Germans. They went ahead and got rid of this Navy, or the British Navy that was in Sea Zone 16, and they utilized all their Air Force to do so, as the German Navy was trapped inside the Baltic Sea because of the Russian Navy. All their tactical bombers and their fighters were in Lower France, and their medium bombers were up in higher Scandinavia. So they completely wiped out this fleet, losing one regular fighter and 2 tactical bombers in the process, but definitely took away quite a bit of the British firepower. They had a bunch of cruisers and destroyers, and of course their transports. Which sets the UK British back probably a turn before they're back up to full effectiveness again. In the Russia area, and because they did the Sea Zone here, they landed all their planes in Stettin, which was now able to make it to Olar-Kursk and land safely in Western Ukraine because of the airbase. So the Russians, seeing this, and faced the task of having to take on the German army and Air Force in open plain all at the same time. So they had a couple of options: stay there, reinforce that area with their own Air Force, and just take on the onslaught of the German army. Or they could have moved to this territory here, which would have then been out of range for the German Air Force. But then the problem with that would be there'd be an open road to Moscow. So the Germans would have moved here. The Russians would have had no choice but to attack. And the weakness of the Russian army is that more than 50% is infantry. And if you're attacking with infantry, you're dwindling your combat firepower in half. So they opted to move into Moscow, which they did have a sizable infantry army there already. So they combined forces to make one larger army instead of 2. This does make the Germans have to wait another turn to capture Moscow. So this next turn here, turn 7, they'll move in here, and then turn 8 into Moscow. This also gives, by doing this, it delays the German attack by 2 turns, giving the Russians the ability to reinforce again with 20 more infantry or 20 more units to defend Moscow. The Russians went ahead and captured Finland yet again. Because of the British landed in Western Germany, reducing their factory down to a minor from a major, the Germans had to respond. They really didn't have anything to attack with. Yes, they had their 4 medium tank or 4 light tanks in Paris and a handful of infantry on the outskirts, but they really wanted to secure that no matter what. So they brought up the force from Finland via the transports and recaptured that, yet again reducing that facility down to nothing. So the production facility of Germany is completely reduced down to 10. At some point they will rebuild. I would suspect they'll probably build in Bavaria instead of on the Sea Zone, preventing the British from making that same attack again. And then having the factory here gives us the same benefit as here, which is 2 spaces away from Paris if they need to reinforce France quickly. And they went ahead and purchased their first round of Mark V's. So they're on the board. They will be able to make that attack into Moscow. The Italians, they completed their first main objective of the game by taking out Cairo, and it was definitely a lopsided battle. The British did have quite a number of units: infantry, paratroopers, commandos, tanks. So the dice was not on the side of the British. The Italians survived with this force here. They did lose all their regular infantry minus 2. So they're reduced on the infantry front a little bit, but certainly lots of artillery, lots of tanks, 4 medium tanks and 2 light tanks in Cairo. And so now that Cairo's gone, Africa really only has a light garrison of British troops. That navy sitting on the edge of Africa that got caught by the Germans. So now that their main objective is done, what do they do next? So they have a couple of options. Obviously, they're going to clean up the rest of Africa over the next couple turns, but the bulk of this force is not really going to have anything to do. So they have a choice. They're definitely going to go through Transjordan into Iraq, Iran, and then from there they can decide to head up into the Caucasus or help out the Japanese in India, or could declare war on Turkey. That could be an option. Give them a few more dollars, give that army something to do. Because as of right now, there's no way. I don't see a path forward for Turkey to join the Allies now that Cairo's gone. And there's no trigger for Turkey to join the Axis like Spain or Sweden. So we're definitely going to have to maybe take that out. Maybe they don't really pose any threat. It's just for a fun adventure. The Italian Navy, which consists of this, and they went ahead and built another battleship. So this Navy, their task now, because they're not going to stay in the Mediterranean, there's no real point. They're going to come out into the Atlantic and challenge the American British, which at this point, the American, they have a sub, 2 destroyers, and a slew of transports. They got 2 attack transports. The British got 4 destroyers, another destroyer, two cruisers. So definitely the British must come out and help out the Germans and get them out of the Baltic Sea to prevent landings. Because if there's no Axis ships in the Atlantic, the Americans and the British are just going to keep wave after wave into France, definitely causing problems for the Germans. For FEC, there was just another buildup. Same thing with the Japanese in Siam. Just another further buildup until one side decides to attack the other. So we'll have to wait and see how that plays out. The Japanese do want, and also the British, they want this resolved sooner rather than later, but they won't push it and give themselves an unfair advantage. Because all the units that are here are now hemmed down, and they can't be utilized up in China the way the Japanese really want this. Japan really wants this war to be over. They only got 3 territories left. And by doing this, it'll free up money free up more money to put into their navy, because America is fully into the war, and with $100+ a turn, it's threatening to the Japanese for sure. So the Japan went down and purchased themselves an instant fleet right away, on a model battleship, a regular battleship, a carrier, handful of subs, and a destroyer. In response to that, the Americans went ahead and built themselves 2 battleships and a carrier to go along with their already surface fleet of 3 battleships, 3 carriers. So for the capital ships, and this is the Japanese Navy, they went ahead and combined their 2 navies together. Capital ship wise, aircraft carrier, they're both the same. Japan does have an edge on battleships and escort vessels. They have more destroyers and cruisers than the Americans. Anzac down here, they really didn't do much. as their options are limited. However, they did go ahead and get another destroyer. There was a Japanese transport here. They came over from New Guinea, dropped off a man to take this dollar away from FEC, but they completely exposed that transport, knowing full well that these two destroyers would sink it. All right. So the Japanese main navy is here off Guam, within striking distance of Hawaii. So their plan is just have a standoff unless the Americans want to attack. The Japanese won't until they get reinforced with this navy, and they want they'll take the 3 transports that are here. They would like to have a 4th one to have a landing into Hawaii, but they'll definitely do with the 3, so they'll give them 6 units to make a landing. See if they can't take that Victory City. And if Japan is able to succeed in this, the entire American Navy will be there. If Japan does win that battle, of course, their Navy will be completely weakened as well. But the Americans will have to start from scratch with a rebuild. So we'll see. So now back to this Moscow battle, which is to quickly become the highlight of the entire war. This battle group is going to go to Olarkursk, and they'll be backed up by these 3 units, these 5 infantry, that artillery. These 2 tanks will move up just outside of Leningrad. These 2 tanks in Western Germany and a handful of infantry will be transported up. They'll land there as well. So not just this army will be going in and the Air Force. There'll be another 15 units will be able to join them as well, or so. So if we go with low luck, the opening battle with the Germans will be going with 112 units. The Russians will have 117. So with low luck odds, the Germans should be able to inflict 43 casualties on the opening round, as the Russians will be able to respond with about 35, 36 hits, and then the battle's open for there. If that little 4 tanks and 5 or 8 infantry doesn't go into Moscow to back them up, they'll be hitting Leningrad, which consists of 6 infantry and 3 artillery. I would suspect they'll get a little boost on their next buy, so that might not be able to with that force. All right. So the British and Canada, they didn't do much, just built some more transports to replace the ones that they lost in Sea-Zone 16. Most of their money went into naval, and as you can tell, they only have 2 infantry on mainland Britain, so the next couple turns are going to have to be devoted to their army to help out the Americans, which are primed. The Americans are ready to go. They just got to wait for the British to catch up. And the British did go ahead and activate Brazil, giving them another transport and a coastal battleship. So they'll be able to help out on the Ally side. At first, we were thinking about maybe landing in Morocco and liberate this British territory here. However, the Italian Navy will be definitely coming up quickly, so 1-2 turns. I'm not sure if they'll be able to get there in time and escape to drop those infantry off. They may just swing up around the Caribbean islands and meet up with the Atlantic fleet to land in Paris. But we will see. All right, and then the British 6 destroyers are still chasing the German, what's left of the German opening fleet. So cruiser and 3 destroyers. They're definitely going to come up and swing into the Mediterranean. So these destroyers know that will more likely happen. So they'll probably just turn around back up into the Atlantic where they're much needed, more so than hunting down this for German ships. All right. All right. So round 7 is about to go underway, and have a great day.